Hey, good people, how you doing? My name is Mike, and my mic is on. My name is Michael Kwambo. We will be looking at the Dubai Sevens. It really is just an armchair analysis of the Dubai Sevens, the opening leg of the 2024-2025 World Rugby 7 Series. It kicks off this Saturday, the 30th of November in Dubai. Kenya Sevens will be making a return. And joining me for the analysis is a former Kenya Harlequin man, former Kenya Under-21 international, power forward in his day, and now the chairman of Facebook RFC. Sorry, Kibui, but how you doing?
I'm doing great. After an intro like that, how can I not be feeling great?
Well, absolutely. You know, it's always good to keep things like we said. This is an armchair analysis of the Dubai Sevens. But before that, you and I have been privileged to see Kenya Sevens play on the series right from 1999.
Yep.
We shared in the grief when the team was relegated at the close of the 2023 season. How did that feel to you?
I was absolutely crushed, not just as a fan, but because we've worn the colors for the country. You know, I think you feel that pain even more so, right? And, you know, going back to, you know, the early 2000s, before we were, part of the tour in the series, it had been, you know, a luxury, and we didn't realize it, and it was taken away from us. We lost it. You know, sometimes you don't take what you have. You don't enjoy it until you lose it. You know what I mean? So it was depressing.
Yeah, I totally get you, and we're just gonna put it into context with this video. Well, as you can see from that presentation there, it was depressing at the close of June 2023. It was a sinking feeling. That time I was still working for the Kenya Rugby Union. I can only imagine what the players were feeling, but for us guys who are in the office and, you know, having to show your face in public, whoa, it was hard. And that's when you realize that so many people were actually following the team around, following its progress as well.
And not just the Kenyan fans, you know, the presenters, the fans across the world were always looking for the Kenyan fans. People used to gravitate to us. Whenever you wanted to enjoy sevens to the utmost, you found the Kenyan corner and you came and you hung out with us, and it was a bash, you know. From the moment we walked into the stadium, it was just a big party, and we had a great time together.
Whoa, and I've been privileged to experience some of those parties together. You have as well. And it's interesting that Shuja is back on the series, and they start the series in Dubai, a place that is like a second home for the Kenyans. There is a large population there. We are going to be looking at the pools first, and then talking about the reimagined tournament. Before talking about Kenya's hopes, let's start with the pools. I'll be pulling up that graphic in a moment as we get to it. Here it is. And
And for those of you following at home, you can find that at svns.com/en/teams.
absolutely. Interesting pools. First of all, it is a 12-team tournament.
Yep.
A break from the 16-team tournament, so there is no hiding place, and it is tight. I mean, 12 teams. We're going into Pool A, which also features Kenya, and this is it: France, South Africa, Australia, and Kenya. Pool B has Argentina, Ireland, Great Britain, and Uruguay, while Pool C has Fiji, New Zealand, United States, and Spain. Your take, how did it feel when you heard that the World Rugby 7 series was going to be rejigged into a 12-team event?
So this is a pretty controversial topic, right? Because we cut down the men's tournament from 16 to 12, and we bumped the women's up from 8 to 12. I say the drop off between the men's rugby from 12 to 16 isn't as steep as it is for the women from 8 to 12. So the quality, I think the quality of rugby, just in that top tier with the women, the gap is much bigger, right? And there's less chance for upsets for like a lower ranked women's side beating a top tier side than there is for men. So it's all in the push for equality, promoting the women's game. So the men miss out because now, like you said, there's nowhere to hide. You have to bring your A game every game, and if you don't, then after eight tournaments, you're staring relegation dead in the eye, right?
Absolutely. And, I agree with you in terms of them trying to get that equality. Also, I do feel that there was commercial interests that drove it more so the need to have both the men's and women's games on TV, and there had to be culprits as well. And whoa, for me, having followed the tournament for 2 decades, adopting to this is still hard. It's still strange. The Olympic format is strange. This continues to be strange, but we are living in strange times, I guess.
Look, I'm all for the promotion of the women's game. I'd rather see more competitive men's games, and I'm all for promotion of the women's game. But without being painted out as a sexist, I want to see more men's games. It's just higher octane. It's quicker. It's faster. The hits are much bigger. It's just my preference, but the tour is what it is, and that's what it's going to be going forward. So the teams have to adjust, and you're going to have to bring your A game every game if you want to stay in the series now.
Yeah, like you said, we're going to have to bring our A games, all the teams there playing if you want to stay on the series. Now, looking at the series pools, let's start with Pool A, which consists of France, South Africa, Australia, and Kenya. Whoa, no hiding place there. Your take on that pool? Uh, you forgot to unmute your mic.
My bad. My bad. So we're coming up from the Challenger Series. That's the first thing. So we haven't played at a competitive level for the last 12 months outside of like Olympics where we didn't have a very good show. And now there's, I think, 4 true debutants. A couple of the guys have had a couple of games on the Challenger Series. And so it's a very raw, very young side. And even with the seasoned vets, they don't have more than maybe a couple of years. You look at France. France have retained the core of their side. Dupont was never really a sevens player, so he's gone back to 15s. You look at Stephen Parezedo, Zedar, Iragua. They've retained the core of their squad, and they've added like 5 guys. So that's essentially a side that's blending in the youth. And with SA has a pretty seasoned squad. And they kind of picked towards the end of last season. Australia are the team that maybe I think we can pick off if we catch them at the right time. We have to be switched on from kickoff. But I think that France game, and that's the first game, we're going to get punched in the mouth. And then the boys, after that first 2 minutes, they need to weather that first 2-3 minutes. If they don't, we're going to be in trouble, serious trouble.
Yeah, like you said, those opening 2 minutes, the opening game as well, really matter for Shuja heading into the Dubai Sevens. The challenge that comes from South Africa, remember they had dipped after Neil Power had left the side. And remember, that's the time Shuja actually pounced on them and secured Olympic qualification. But knowing those kind of teams, they will not be taking those results lightly. And like you said, for Shuja, the seasoned players, I remember interviewing George Oro in 2022 and he was earning his debut and he's now the captain. I remember seeing Samuel Asati feature in the Kenya under 20 side that won the Bartes Trophy in 2019 and qualified for the World Rugby Junior Trophy. Like you
Yeah.
said, very little experience here, but such is life, such is the game. It's always in motion, and for
Yeah.
whatever reason that the senior players are missing, the 13 players who've been selected on the day really must just show up for the team, show up for the country as well. And for Shuja, what do you think their targets will be in Dubai, especially when you consider the opposition that they're facing in
Yeah.
France, South Africa, and Australia?
I mean, Kevin Wambua is going to say they're going for the quarters, right? And that's how you should play, because it's going to be the top two. You want to try and qualify as the third qualifier. I think that's probably best case. So that's also a points thing. It's points differential. So they're going to have to play their defense as well as they possibly can. Wambua is going to have to be very, very, very sneaky with his substitutions. He's going to have to play that really well. But I think if they win a game, 2 games, that's probably a good showing. You have to temper your expectations with the fact that these are kids who haven't been at this level. So if we get a 1 win, I think that's some progress.
1 win, a positive result, definitely. Like you said, it is progress. And I think, when you look at it, obviously resources is something that is lacking for the Kenyans. But when you look at it for the other squads, many of their players in a similar scenario to the Kenyans. But remember, these are players who are in full-time programs, compensated aptly for their time and effort. For the Shujaa, yes, there's some decent sponsorship that has come in over the past few weeks. We saw M-Pesa inject something, and then also Sport Pesa repackage their sponsorship of the national team. Unfortunately, in that repackaging, we did see the loss of 2 key players for Shujaa, Vincent Onyala and Tony Omondi, both co-captains,
Okay.
prior to 2023, the most experienced players on the team. Do you think the absence will be felt in this particular round, and do you think there's a way back in for them into the squad?
100%. Vincent Onyala is not just a captain and a leader. He was a game breaker. He's the guy who would track back and make try-saving tackles, game-saving tackles, right? Omondi is a goal kicker. So my first question now is, Kenya has always had the issue of nobody can kick conversions. Antonio Omondi was a guy who consistently slotted conversions. So who's going to kick conversions? We lose games. How many times have we lost games by 2 points? Mike, 2 points. And that's just because the guys are missing conversions. So we're going to feel it from a leadership perspective and from game breaker perspective.
Yeah, like you said, there's been moments where Kenya has lost games by the fine margins, those kicks proving costly. Having not had a reliable kicker since Lavin Asego, Tony Omondi was growing into his own. But again, like we say, life is motion. Maybe I can give you some information from the local national 7th circuit. There's one of the call-ups in Brian Ondego. I'm not too sure if he'll make the tournament 12 because he's in the 13 traveling to both South Africa and Dubai. Brian Ondego's kicks are reminiscent of Lavin Asego, the accuracy, the placement, and all, not only for goal, but for territory as well. Nigel Amaitsa had also proven himself to be quite proficient with the kicking tee. But like you said, until we see a change, then there'll be obviously the absence being felt of both Vincent Onyala and Tony Omondi. Now, moving on to Pool B, and that is an equally, like we said, there's no hiding place here. Just look at this pool: Argentina, Ireland, Great Britain, Uruguay. There's no hiding place in sevens. And what do you make of it?
Argentina, I think they're just missing Isgro, who has now moved up to the Quins, and he's playing for the full 15 side. He was a phenomenal player for them, World Rugby Sevens Player of the Year. So that's a huge loss, but they had the depth in that side, and I don't think they'll feel it as much. So I expect Argentina to top that pool. Ireland have had a very good program the last few years, and I expect them to come second in the pool. Great Britain just seem to be chopping and changing. The challenge of including Scottish and Welsh players and Northern Ireland players with the English kids, with English guys, I think that's cost them from a consistency perspective. So I think they come third. unless maybe Uruguay, who have been very solid. They beat us twice last year towards the end of the Challenger Series. They won the final. So I think Uruguay can maybe shock them because of their consistency, as opposed to the British program, who have had some challenges with I think their selection and just consistency. So, yeah.
Yeah, and I like the way you talk about Uruguay because I also think that they can be a dark horse in the pool. Remember, they are in close proximity of Argentina. Many of their players, particularly in the longer version of the game, play professional rugby in Argentina. There's a lot of training and development programs between the two countries. Throw in Chile as well. And just based on that fact, I'm sure that they are feeding off the Argentines in terms of how they manage their game, how they prepare their players, and will be looking to cause upsets for both Ireland and Great Britain, and have a look into the cup quarters, because with 12 teams, you could end up being one of the two best third placed teams and sneaking into the last eight. And we all know how day two can be. And to digress, remembering the days of like when we used to have Great Rift Ten aside. Day one, you barely just make you just barely make it into the pool, but on day two, you guys show up like animals, and you say that you're going for the cup, and the reward that was that was packaged with the cup. We all know what it was.
At Great Rift, the day one, you were just trying to survive a season-ending injury. You just didn't want to be injured. You just want to make it to day two so you can play.
Absolutely. Now let's look at Pool C. If Pool A and B are hard, I don't know what we're going to describe Pool C as, because in this pool there is Fiji, New Zealand, the United States, and Spain. If I'm not wrong, let it pop up on the screen.
Yeah.
But just to confirm what we have said, there it is: Fiji, New Zealand, United States, and Spain.
As they say, Nikubaya.
Yeah.
So New Zealand peaked at the right time last season, and so did Fiji. Colonisau, they got rid of their foreign coach. Colonisau came in probably around April, May, and actually March, April, and the Fiji side were in flux. People were beating them left, right, and center, and Colonisau went back to their basics. He has brought them to the place where they're playing to their strengths, and that Fiji flair is back. New Zealand also, they peaked towards the end of last season, and they've kept the core of their squad. So I say those two probably, they'll top the pool. I wouldn't be surprised if either one of them tops the pool. And for me, other than maybe watching Argentina last season, Spain was one of my most fun sides to watch last season. Spain plays some beautiful sevens rugby. Spain has some athletes. Those guys think on their feet. They hit hard. Don't be surprised if Spain comes second in that group. That's a dark horse for the whole series for me.
And just talking about Spain before we talk about the other teams, they actually used to use the Safari Sevens in Nairobi as a build-up, and people would laugh because they wouldn't bring like the strongest squads to Nairobi, but it was more like developmental squads. And then in years gone by, you actually look at these names and they tally with who came to Nairobi, so they're actually being blooded into the system, and
That's amazing.
You can see how deliberate they are with their program. Argentina as well used to do that probably 10 years ago, but we're talking about Pool C. Fiji, do you think that maybe it was just that new coach bounce? Every team tends to have some sort of spring in the step when a new coach comes before reverting to default settings.
I think Fiji have shown that when you play to your strengths, and nobody understands their system better than Colonisau. He played in those Olympic sides. He was the captain, right? So he is Fiji rugby through and through. He's the guy who has played for them, and now he understands the players. And there's also that aspect of respect, right? And he understands the culture. So I don't think it's a new coach bounce. I think they're going to be there to challenge for the series this season. And I think day one, Saturday, they're going to lay down a marker and let everybody know it wasn't just a one-off last season. I think Fiji are back.
It's great. What about New Zealand? I tend to think New Zealand just lost that spark, but it's romanticism as well that is leading me in that direction because Gordon Tigans had the magic
Yeah.
touch, and when it was fading away, that it faded away. New Zealand have really never been the same. This is not to take away anything from the rest of the teams playing on the World Series, but they just haven't been the same. They will show up in spurts, and then other times they're pretty much just like any other contender. So is it that they lost their magic, or has the rest of the world caught up to them?
Coaches play a huge part. And I think you talk about Tijans. Look at what Tijans did with the Chinese women's side. If you saw them playing at the beginning of last season, at the end, completely different teams. So coaching plays a huge part. So losing like a cornerstone, I would equate it to like the way Man United, sorry, Man United fans, but when they lost Sir Alex, they've been in flux for a while. So I think they went through some coaching changes, but they still have the core of that side. I don't know if they have the speed, the out and out gas that they used to have, but they'll have technical operators who are quick enough to make the difference around the field. So I don't know. I think New Zealand will be competitive. I want to see what we see this weekend, and then I can make a determination whether they're going to be, top three, or if they're just going to be a fringe 3 through 6 side. So we'll need to see this weekend.
Yeah, it is obviously going to be an interesting weekend to look forward to as we wind this up. 2 questions for you quickly. Number 1, who do you see winning in Dubai? And then number 2, where do you see Kenya finishing in Dubai?
Hot weather and all, I'm going to say Fiji. I looked at their lineup, and they have some physical bodies up front, and they have gas men. And when you play in the desert, you need to have 4 or 5 guys who have the gas. So when you're subbing off like one guy like Nanduvalo and you're bringing on Saturanga, there's no respite. There's no retreat. Remember that movie, No Retreat, No Surrender? You're literally sitting there thinking, guy, they've brought this guy on, and now we're going to run. So my opinion is Fiji wins. What do you think, based on what you've seen and the lineups? What do you think? Who's going to be in the finals? Who do you think will make quarters, and who will you make finals? I'm going to put you on the spot.
Well, for the quarters, let me start by eliminating Spain, Kenya, Ireland. It's a rough guess. And Uruguay. So I've eliminated those from the top 8. Mm-hmm. Kenyan fans, bear with me, because if they perform well, it'll be like we didn't expect this. Anyway, the teams that I do see making the quarters, therefore, there's France, there's Great Britain, Fiji. I don't have the list with me, but everything else away from those 4. Now, the final, I do expect Fiji, South Africa in the final. And a South African win. Pretty Ricky Duarte is a bag of tricks for the South Africans, and definitely is going to be a key player for them. Remember, they're rebuilding and looking to head into the new years with a bang, as they try to just pick up from where Neil Powell had taken them after a lot of hard work by Paul True initially. But that is it for me. So I'm looking at a South Africa win, and a South Africa Fiji final in Dubai.
That would be a serious final, and I think that's a good shout. I like it. How about Kenya? Who do you think their standout performers are going to be? You've got more experience with watching the local circuit. You know the boys pretty well. What do you feel? Who do you think our standout players are going to be this weekend?
Well, standout players for Kenya in the absence of Vincent Onyala and Tony Omondi, I do expect Nigel Amaitsa to step up. That he is one creative spark. Mm-hmm. Does a lot from number 10. I do expect Patrick Odongo, if he gets good service as well, to show up for the Kenyans. George Oro, the captain, he has a big tank. He never tires throughout the game. And Samuel Asati just keeps sniping around the base, tireless, full of energy. So it is for me those four players who I expect to do a lot for the Kenyans in Dubai.
Love it. I know everything runs through Asati, right? He's that typical scrum half creator, like a Tomasi Thama. He's the guy who makes things happen. He's electric. I'd love to see Abukuse get some minutes before his injury. Like, that guy is a gas man as well. Everybody knows Patrick Odongo. Most people, outside of Kenya, don't really know about Abukuse, and that guy is electric. That guy is serious. So I think that's a great 1-2 punch. Wabwira is also a quick guy. Got some big bodies. So Kevin Wekesa has matured. He's matured so much. You forgot about him.
How could I forget? How?
He's matured so much over the last 2 years. He's just big. He's rangy. He's got amazing hands for a big man. They're like sufurias, just catches anything that you throw in. But I think he's also going to be a leader for this side. Oro is the co-captain, but Wekesa leads by example. So I'm looking at Wekesa, Asati, and Abukuse to have a big tournament. Also, Ben Salem Odoyo, who's making his elevation from the Morans into Shuja. He had a short stint here in Dallas Harlequins as well, back in Kenya now. He's a good fly half. I think he may take some of those conversions as well. So rooting for him to also have a great tournament as well.
Absolutely. And obviously, let's congratulate Kevin Wekesa, recently graduated from the Technical University of Nairobi. A brilliant case of mixing academics with sports. That is something we always like to see. And for him, literally coming out of graduation and getting onto the plane to Dubai, congratulations to the big man, Kevin Wekesa.
Congrats, Kevin Wekesa. Good job, young man.
All right, let us old men relax, and we will compare notes once the tournament is done, and then look at Cape Town as well. That sounds like a great idea, doesn't it?
I'm ready. I'm here for it.
Awesome. Well, this has been the Dubai Sevens preview and armchair analysis. We don't claim to be experts here. We're just giving our unbiased views. And to whoever's watching, thank you for watching. Share this around and catch you next time.
Thank you for having me on.